Hello everyone and welcome to the Sea Live podcast. My name is Sam and as always I have my trusted friend and podcast sidekick, Mr. Christopher Vance.
Hey!
There he is.
How are you, mate?
Mate, you've got a nice little trim there, haven't you? You've had a nice little cut for
Grim.
because it only is we're literally hours away from another national lockdown. Who would have thought it, Chris? Lockdown 2.0 and this time it's serious.
This is the sequel. What's gonna happen?
No one knows. It's serious and it's personal as well. I messed up my little tag line there, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? How are you, mate? What have you been up to this week?
Well, we had a nice little meeting this morning. We've got a little plan together, haven't we? I'm not going to give too much about it. We had a nice little meeting this morning with a couple of people who are very interested to help us, which is fab. And we'll push that on over the next few weeks, hopefully. Even in lockdown, we will still be doing stuff, won't we? We don't stop.
We certainly don't.
We're busy doing our own things at the moment. You're obviously you're in LMA, and I'm sifting through piles of concrete. But we will try and do something, and we will do something because it's important to keep everyone going.
Yes, exactly. So it's really important, guys, that you do follow us on our social media. So please do follow us. So on Facebook, we are at Sea Live. On Twitter, we are at Sea Live Enter to 1. And on Instagram, we are Sea Live UK. But enough about that. We are going to introduce our guest for this evening. So tonight's podcast guest is Dom Gourley, who's done festivals and live reviews. And also is an editor as well for the Under the Radar magazine based in Nottingham. He's a live promoter and he signs bands and as well as a writer and a DJ. So let's get him on the podcast. Dom, how are you doing, Dom?
All good, thanks.
We don't do politics, but I think today of all days, I think we do need to touch upon it, Chris. I think we need to break the politics. We do. I think we do. We've just got to. We can touch on it a little bit.
Are we talking about loser? Are we talking about Donald?
We're talking about just what's happening over the pond. You know that.
I wonder how our mate Danny has voted this week.
Do you know
He's been pushing his voting T-shirt. I've seen his little post yesterday. Mr. Gomez. He's hopefully he would have voted the right way. We trust Danny.
Yeah. What do you think of it all then, Dom? Obviously, watching from afar.
To be honest, I've got to say, I've been rooting for Biden. I've got a lot of friends who are based in the States, and I think that obviously the last 4 since Donald Trump elected and the rise of populism, and obviously something like Brexit, getting someone like Boris Johnson over here. You look at what's happened, since it's the COVID pandemic launched, and the countries that have dealt with it the worst have been the ones with populist leaders. So I'm kind of hoping that that when Mr. Trump loses, and it is going to be a when rather than if, that might just sort of like bring a demise to the culture of populism. So fingers crossed.
Well, we will see. I reckon we'll know by Friday. Do you think we'll know by Friday?
I don't. I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that when the result comes out that Biden's basically got enough votes. Although how the voting system works is beyond me. But when it comes out, I think he's going to appeal it. He'll probably board himself in the Oval House and start a nuclear war or something. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting few days. Put it that way.
Talk about politics now, Sam. Let's move on. Let's talk about.
All right. I'll let you off.
Now, obviously, Dom, I've known you a long time.
Yes.
We have known each other a long time.
I think we first met in the queue for the rabbit hole, didn't we?
We did. I was saying this to Sam the other day. I was like, I met Dom going into a club at Glastonbury. That was it, wasn't it? We just started.
It was actually going down a hole as well. If I remember rightly, you had to crawl inside, and you had to answer questions on Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And I've no idea how we got them right, but we must have got them right because we got in.
But you actually physically, Sam, crawl through a hole. You have to get on your hands and knees and crawl through a hole, and then you're in a nightclub.
Unbelievable. But I didn't even know that Glastonbury had nightclubs. Like, is it not just a festival?
I mean, it's one of those. I mean, it's one of those festivals where you can actually go there for 5 days, not watch a single band on the main stages, still have the best time of your life.
Yeah.
You've got whole areas that are literally just they're sort of like built to resemble nightclubs. Or so, for example, you've got certain blocks or Shangri-La that are almost designed on real sort of like weird dystopian sort of like fantasies or nightmares, as depending on how you want to look at it. And the music and the DJs in there are just, there's some of the best DJs that you could imagine of the last probably 45 years, going back to the 1970s, when you had sort of like the origins of house music and rap music in Chicago and Detroit. I mean, it's an incredible festival. Everyone should go.
We've got like there's a part of the section called Heaven and Hell.
Yes. Yeah.
So and the big buildings, they're actually buildings, Sam. It's mad. And then you've got a circus. There's a circus tent, massive circus. You've got a big robotic machine firing fire all night. But there's all areas you can go to, like the park. We used to go by the park and camp there. You obviously never camped because you had he was the biggest VIP.
Oh no, we always camp. We always camp. I mean, there was always a guest camping area, but there was loads of my friends that go every year from Nottingham and Derby. So I just used to camp with them.
Yeah,
I always camp with my friends. It's. I mean, the guest camping's all right, and it's good to go in there for a shower every couple of days. But yeah. No, I mean, I think it's just one big party.
Every day at Glastonbury, when I seen him, right, he was the so smartly dressed fella I've ever seen in my life. I looked like I'd been dragged through the whole field by my head, right? And he used to come out in these lovely jackets and stuff like that. And he'd have like, oh, the toilets are fine in there. One of the highlights for me, last time I went to Glastonbury, was I got my hair washed in the Christian tent. And I knew that was things had changed for me, because I was like, and then I thought, I'm going to get my hair washed. And I gave them a little donation, and she washed my hair, and it was one of the nicest afternoons I had at Glastonbury. Good place though, isn't it?
I think one of the things that I always say about Glastonbury is if you can remember everything that's happened by Monday, you've not had a good time.
It's certainly on my bucket list because I've never been.
Definitely do it. Although saying that, I mean, when it's whether it's going to happen next year, it's all up in the balance, isn't it? At the moment, I'm kind of worried really whether much is going to happen next year. I mean, lots of promoters and artists now are cancelling tours for the early part of next year. I mean, some of the shows that I'd got booked for this year that got moved to April have already been cancelled. And if I look around, just around the what's on lists in Nottingham and Derby, there's so many gaps now in January, February, and March where things have been cancelled and moved back. So I'm really concerned that unless there's a vaccine, things might not.
Did you start the year? Did you start the year with a festival? January.
I did. I actually started the year. So Rockaway Beach. This year was the 5th edition, and for that one, I mean, I've DJ'd at everyone, and we sort of obviously always done a write up there. Some of the talks and that with some of the artists who were playing as well. And what I do, there's me and a guy called John Lynch. And I think you've met John, Chris. His band have played Liverpool Psych Fest a few times. A band called the Telescopes.
Oh yes.
I'm pretty sure that you've met him. But me and John, we've DJ'd the Rockaway Beach closing party for a number of years, and that's a brilliant night on the Sunday night. It's just us for 3 hours, just going balmy, playing anything and everything. We'll play ABBA, we'll play Confidence Man, we'll play the Manics, we'll play Motown, we'll play anything, and it's just something that we've done every year. And we were sort of like planning on taking that around quite a few festivals for the summer. So again, it's everything just sort of like landed at the wrong time. I mean, I guess there was no right time for the pandemic, but for us it was almost like, well, we've been doing this at Rockaway Beach for 5 years. Let's take it around a few other festivals and events, and it just sort of like grind to a very sudden halt.
So how did you do this? And I've known you a long time, and I've never actually sat you down. How did you get into writing? You're a massive music fan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I started when I was in the sixth form, really, and that's going back a long time. In Mansfield, I used to just write for, well, just write reviews of records, and then I started sort of like got to know a few people that were doing fanzines around Mansfield and Derby. Wrote a few bits for fanzines, just sent bits off to different editors. Not a lot got published. Then I went to uni, Nottingham Trent, which was all right. I had a good time there. Became the music editor of Platform, which was their student newspaper, and just sort of like started from that really. And then at the end of my second year, I interviewed the Beastie Boys, and I sent that off in a competition for the Guardian, and it got into the final six shortlist. And it just sort of like moved on from there. So Rock City, which is one of our main venues over in Nottingham, they used to have a magazine called the Rock City Review, and I was doing a few bits for that. And then more of the people that used to sort of like run fanzines started a website called Drowned in Sound in 2000, and I started doing stuff for them in 2001, and then sort of like continued doing stuff for Drowned in Sound right through till April of last year when it finally closed down.
Which is Drowned in Sound.
Really sad. It's massive loss, and I'm not just saying that personally, but I think it's a massive loss for artists as well. I mean, the main policy on Drowned in Sound was there was no policy. So whatever style of music, whatever you were into, we've got a good team of writers, 47 people, all bringing different things into the mix. And it was basically if you liked something or you were passionate about something, it was a goer. There was no editorial policy or agenda, which you tend to find that there is in a lot of other publications, and it's difficult really to sort of like bring acts or bring artists in that haven't got that kind of PR or label behind them.
And I reckon that's the follow on from like the end of the 90s. That's the 90s format that moved into sort of the early 2000s, where
I kind of understand why, because the big problem at the moment is that no one's got any money, and most quite a lot of publications are struggling to pay writers. It's like, for me, the editorial title's great, but you don't get paid for everything I do. So album reviews, you don't get paid for them unless you're fortunate enough and you're writing for a broadsheet newspaper. But even then, the pay's not it's not enough to live on without having other alternative employment or means of making money.
Have you ever listened to an album, or they give you an album and you thought, oh my god, it's shocking? Are you brutally honest?
I've given a couple of 0s and 1 out of 10s, which haven't made me very popular with a few PRs and managers in the business, and it's interesting because when Drowned in Sound went under, and there were a few of these people that were celebrating on social media. We finally got rid of some of these people, but I mean, the thing is, it's interesting now because I've sort of like seen a few hatchet jobs of artists in recent weeks, and I don't know if you're fans of the band Idols, but I'm a big fan of Idols, and I've got to know them quite well over the last few years, and I think, if I'm being honest, they're probably one of the last real British success stories for bands that they've been going for about 9-10 years. They've literally built all this massive following on their own, and then kind of got big by word of mouth, and they had a #1 album at the back end of September. Oh, wow. But that was their third album, and the first two albums were really critically acclaimed, and and lots of people really kind of like bought into it and got into it. But then with the third album and the expectation around it, and they were nominated for a Mercury last year and all stuff like that. And then there was some real nasty personal hatchet jobs. And I thought, well, that's not, if I'm going to criticise something, I'd rather do it constructively. But when it's personal and it's having to go at the guitarist's moustache or the way the singer walks or things, and I think, well, it's that, that's not really talking about the music when it's getting personal. And and maybe 18-year-old me would have found it funny, but now I'm thinking, well, that's not really music criticism the way I see it anyway.
Was it the classic third album syndrome?
It just seemed to be the classic case of someone's been built up and we're going to knock them down, and that's fine. I kind of get that not everyone's going to like everything, but at the same time, there are ways of knocking things down. Don't use a sledgehammer to crack a walnut.
What's your process then when you get a brand new album on your desk? What's the process like? Are you going in with obviously a clear mind, but what's the first thing you look for? What's the first thing that you write down? That something that you like, dislike?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, I get sent a lot of stuff by PRs anyway, and I mean, I've done numerous sort of like talks, panels at different events and festivals, and people always ask that question. So how would I get you to review my music? And I've always said, well, if you're in a band, if you're in an unsigned band or an unsigned artist, and you want a journalist to review your music, one of the best things that you can do is to go and have a look at for a start, which writers are fans of the people that inspire and influence you. So for example, I mean, as Chris will probably tell you, I'm a big fan of sort of like noise bands and psych bands and punk bands. So if you're a folk artist, for example, I'm probably not the right person to give that music to. And one of the things that we try to do is, the albums editor will always put out a list every week of what's available, and we'll try and, people can then go in there and sort of like request whatever it is that they want to write about, and then they do try and allocate them that, well, why would I give Dom something that he's going to hate and probably not even going to take the time out to listen to, rather than give him something that he's going to think, well, yeah, I'm intrigued by that, I want to hear that, I'm going to write about it, probably going to like it. And I think it's a difficult balancing act, to be honest, because obviously nobody wants a constant stream of like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 reviews, but at the same time nobody wants a constant stream of hatchet jobs or 3-word reviews, for something that's clear that writer wasn't a fan in the first place.
And
is go on,
no,
Sam,
I was going to
mate.
say, like, obviously you're giving out these reviews. Is there one that you regret, like maybe looking back on? Obviously, no names, but are there a few that you regret?
There is one. There's one that really stands out, and it kind of came home to bite me on the backside about 18 months ago. The last time that I interviewed them. And it's a band that when they released the first album, they were a very different band to how they developed into being. And the first album, I wasn't really a fan, and I think I was a bit guilty of what I'm talking about with the Idols thing. And I tend to sort of that review focused more on the image, and it focused more on the band's backgrounds really. And then the second album came along, and it completely blew me away. And in that 3 years between the records, they've become an incredible live band. And then, I mean, they've got 5 albums out now. One of my favourite bands. And I interviewed the singer around the time that the last album came out, and he must have. I mean, I've interviewed them quite a few times, but he must have, for whatever reason, just looked at my profile, because then he started asking me questions based on a review that I did 14 years before. And I thought, oh no, and it was a really awkward interview. It was one that I was looking forward to and really building up, because I'm a huge fan of the band and that record. But it was one that left me wincing, and should have been. I mean, I'd been allocated 45 minutes for the interview. I think it lasted about 10. So it was clear that he'd obviously done a bit of research on me, read that, and it was just right. I'm just going to give you 1-word answers.
Wow.
And turn the question onto you. So so why did you write this about me? And it's like, that was 14 years ago, and we've all changed. Yeah, but even so, I mean, why should I talk to you now then.
Oh no.
Okay, fair point. So that's probably one that stands out for me.
Is it difficult to obviously when you're at a festival and you've had a couple of drinks and all that? Is it difficult to remember everything when you?
Good question.
To be honest, I mean, one of the things about me, Chris, and you've probably noticed me. I'm constantly taking photos. I'm always taking, and I also always harass as many bands as possible for set lists.
Right.
You want to see my collection of set lists, Chris? I've got it. It's just over. I've literally got ring binder after ring binder after ring binder of set lists.
Wow.
I've got so many set lists, and I try through that. That's you know, and I mean, I think there was once. This is going back, oh God, nearly 20 years ago, and I reviewed a band. Actually, it was a band that played at Sherwood Forest near where I'm from. And I remember we got absolutely hammered. I can't remember what we were drinking. Something in front of me probably, but we got absolutely hammered. And then I'm in the taxi on the way back to my parents, and I'm like, they didn't play their biggest hit. They didn't play it. I know they didn't play it. In fact, they didn't play any of them. So I wrote the review, and at the time on Drowned in Sound, readers were allowed to post their comments below reviews. And I wrote this review. Someone just did a photo, just took a picture of the set list and just put that as a comment. And it was about 4 songs that I said that they didn't play. About the first 4 or 5 songs were 4 of those songs, and it was just take that review down now. Remove it.
Because you get involved, and we've done a few festivals together now, and
Yes,
you get involved. You know what I mean? And you are obviously taking pictures, but the write-ups are always fantastic, and they're very true, because I've seen the same bands as you, and from what I read is exactly what I've seen.
Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. No, thanks.
Which is what you want to see.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, you know, it's as I say, being a festivals and live reviews editor, you know, that's something that for me, that's kind of like a dream existence in many ways. I mean, you know, as much as I love listening to albums and demos and stuff like that, you know, and then obviously interviewing bands. I mean, I prefer being at a show. I prefer being at a festival, and it's, you know, just that sort of experience and being able to talk about it, and you know, and try and picture it. And I get that it's difficult if you're not there, but you know, for me, I think that's where I feel that I'm strongest in that kind of field anyway.
Yeah, I was in a bit of a band, quite a successful band, and a very famous presenter, I won't say names, did a review on them, and she never went to the gig.
I've never done that. I could have done that. I could honestly say that that's something that I've never ever done. I've never reviewed something if I wasn't there. I know people that have, and I've been asked to do it, and I've always refused. I mean, I think there's sort of like levels of integrity that you've got to, you know, and that's, to me, yeah, that's just completely undermines the purpose, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but she's not done too bad for herself. Just say the BBC have kept her busy over the last 20 years.
I think I know who you're talking about, and I think we'll leave it at there.
Yeah. When you go and see bands, do you like the discovery side of things?
I do, yeah, absolutely. I do. I mean, you know, it just sort of like being able to go and see a band, or even go to a show, you know, and you've gone to see a headline band, because I always make a point of going to see the support bands, and going in there, and you've got a support band, you had no idea who that band was, and they've blown you away in a 20-minute set, and you've gone to talk to them, you've got to know them, you know, and then 3-4 years down the line, you know, they're one of the biggest bands, and that's probably one of the things, you know, going back to Idols again, because, you know, I saw Idols play they did a set at Eurosonic in Groningen, which is like a showcase for all bands around Europe, and then they played at a venue in Derby called Vines. And Vines, if you can imagine an upstairs room at probably one of the worst 80s themed disco bars you'll ever see, and you've got this real hardcore punk band playing, and to about 50 people, and we just got talking to them that night, and just literally sort of became friends with them. And I suppose I could even say to a point, my favourite band, Manic Street Preachers, first time that I saw them, probably 20 people there, and 97 times later.
Balaclava days? Did they have the Balaclava days? Were they the...
That's before. No, that's going back way before that. About 3-4 years before that.
Wow.
1991, February 1991, first time I saw them.
Is that the band you've seen most?
That's the band I've seen most. 98 band I've seen most. 98. That's what I mean. I was gutted because I was going to get my 100 up this year, and obviously that's not going to happen now either. So 98 times. 98 times.
Jesus. Jesus.
First dance at my wedding. Everything.
What was the first dance?
Motorcycle Emptiness.
Was it? Great. Is that the Holy Bible?
No, Generation Terrorist. That's off the first one.
Okay, so yeah, the Manics kind of they went so mainstream in about 96 or something?
Yeah. But it was still a brilliant record. And in fact, I remember seeing one of the first shows that they played after Richie. After they came back after Richie, they supported Oasis at Nebworth. And I managed to get a ticket for that one. And that was a crazy day actually. That was an incredible day.
The Manics they were always round there, weren't they? Floating round in that circle of Oasis, Blair.
Yeah.
And the likes of Pulp, who were supporting Blair. They were all in that little zone. I was only saying before actually, 96 to 98 was some of the best summers I've ever had for music.
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, there's just been so many. I mean, I even going back to when I was a kid. I mean, I think back to summer of 1985. When I was on holiday with my parents. We used to have a caravan in Margate in Kent, and sort of like just going there, and then there was a great record shop that was in a place called Cliftonville. And got walking in there and hearing the Jesus and Mary chain for the first time. That was just, wow, just blew me away. And it was just like, to a 14-year-old kid from Mansfield that's gone on holiday with his parents somewhere down Kent. And and you just sort of, all your spending money that you've done your paper rounds for on anything by the Jesus and Mary chain. And it was just tiny things like that stand out for me.
Have you ever bought an album, Sam, and then gone to the show and been totally disappointed with the live show?
No, I haven't. No, I mean, like, the last proper festival I went to was when I was 17, 18, and I went to the Isle of Wight festival with and the headline acts were Bon Jovi, classic, loved all that, and again, albums that I'd listened to. The Killers, obviously my generation, and the Killers, absolutely love that. Some of the other acts as well, the likes of The Script, Paloma Faith. Who else was on? But in answer to your question, no, they were all unbelievable, and again, memories that take to the grave. Spending them with some of my best friends and watching the music, it was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So no, maybe Will Young, but that was my first album.
And I'm going to say it now, was Eric Clapton at Liverpool. He just didn't want to be there. He just said nothing all night. He didn't want to be there. He played no solos. He had the keyboard player doing all the solo, and people were leaving.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst gigs, and it wasn't a cheap gig. You got your certain artists, Claptons, McCartneys, Elton Johns, who can put 70 to 100 quid on per ticket, and it was awful. It was awful. But it's Clapton, isn't he? He's done his trade. He's just going out on the road, and
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? You've got some artists, when they get to that level, they can afford to just go through the motions. They can afford to just take the money and run, or hobble in this case. And I mean, it must be about 70 now, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, the worst one for me was probably when the Verve came back in 2010 or 2011. And I'm a huge fan of. I mean, again, I remember Verve when they were Verve before the Verve, seeing them blow Smashing Pumpkins off stage at Rock City in 1992, which was an incredible show. You know, and I love that. I mean, the first two records especially, and then obviously they split towards the end of the 90s, and then came back with a fourth album in 2010, and they played at Nottingham Arena. And you kind of knew that things were probably going to be great because the band members were on stage. Ashcroft was they were just playing this long intro, and Ashcroft finally came on. He dyed his hair blonde like Paul Weller, and there was just no chemistry, or there were no sort of like in between banter. It was very formulaic. The songs were all Urban Hymns heavy, Urban Hymns is a great album, but it's for me it's not my favourite. There was no atmosphere, and people were leaving in droves, and we left before the end. We didn't stay till the end of the show. It was just this is really, because I mean I'd seen them before, so I'd kind of seen them when I think that they were at their best. But some of my friends who were a little bit younger, that was the first chance they got to see them, and they were absolutely devastated. So that was probably one of my worst. That old Shaman. Actually.
Last time I seen Richard Ashcroft, every song he changed his coat.
As if then, does he?
Changed his coat every song. So he had an orange one, a blue one, every song. That was supporting Liam Gallagher at Manchester.
Oh right, okay.
And so he was just Richard Ashcroft, you know what I mean, singing his back catalogue. But every song he changed his coat. I thought I quite like that. I quite like me coats.
It's a lot of coats though to go through, isn't it?
Yeah, he had quite a long set. It was about a good.
I was going to say, must have brought some coats on there. I mean, if you know, was there a coat for every song then?
There was a coat for every song. I think he recycled one at the end. He cycled one at the end because I was watching it. I was going, he's changing his coat again. This array of coats.
Did he come back for an encore? What did he bring for an encore? Did he bring a big duffel coat or something?
I had a few by then. I can't remember, but he changed his coat every game. every song he changed it. So when you're doing a DJ set, because you DJ as well, don't you? I've had the pleasure of hearing your DJ skills, but Sam has had the pleasure of hearing my DJ skills.
I've never heard you, Chris, actually. I bet that'd be quite interesting.
Sam, I'll let you relay the story.
Dom. Basically, we were filming a show reel for our great friend Steve, who's part of C Live. Make sure you go to the C Live website. I'll get that plug in there as well to see some of our fantastic acts available for hire after this lockdown. The next thing, basically Chris wanted to have a go. So obviously Steve's like, I've been training for the past like 20, 30, 40 years doing me
worth of decks. Right, I'll have a go.
Literally, I'll have a go, fine. Yeah, go on, get me on. What was it? Beastie Boys and...
I went from Toto Africa into your mates, the Beastie Boys, Fight for the Right to Party. Now, Dom.
Exactly, Dom. Exactly.
I mean, I've got I mean, I'd like to have seen people's reactions on the floor when you were playing that.
There was no reactions. What I actually did was I slowed the Beastie Boys to the slowest possible way, and then I just fired it in. Oh, there's a video of it somewhere. There's a video. You'll be blown away. Literally. Now, in fact, here's something that you should do. Just on my mix, you should write a review on it.
Cool, then I'll do that.
Just one word, shite.
They might even publish it, you never know.
There doesn't deserve a number for that review. There's no numbers for that review.
So, say if you're doing a DJ set. So we've done Spikefest a few times together, which is a fantastic psychedelic weekend in Liverpool, and it's not been on for the last few years. It should have been on this year.
I know.
And we've unfortunately will not be there. But when you're doing something like Psychfest, do you obviously pick certain?
I've got an idea of what I'm going to play. I mean, the most difficult thing I used to find DJing at Psychfest was you'd be DJing on one of the stages in between the bands. You try DJing when you've got some of the loudest bands in the world that are sound checking below you. And I remember there was one year when a band from Russia called Pink Shiny Ultra Blast were sound checking, and they are loud. I put them on in Nottingham in 2015. They are incredibly loud, and I'm trying to cue stuff up, and it got to about 3 songs into my set, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to put a CD in. I can't even hear myself. All I can hear is them sound checking, and I imagine that's all that anyone that's in the room can hear either. I was going to put a CD on for 10 minutes and just have a quick drink. So that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, Sightfest, great, you know. And the last year that I did Sightfest, what would that be? 2018, I think. It would be 2018. And you know, I was DJing one of the outdoor stages. And that was brilliant. You know where the bar is, where you got all the tokens from.
Yeah.
I was DJing the outdoor stage, and that was amazing. That was actually probably my favourite year for DJing there, because I didn't have to compete against bands who were sound checking.
What is the loudest band you've ever seen?
Oh, that's interesting. I would have said maybe My Bloody Valentine, but actually, no, it's probably a band called Loop. And Loop played. They actually played at Nottingham Trent, and that's about 1990. And they were so loud, they actually blew all the power for the university and all the pubs around and some of the street lights.
Shut up!
Loop were incredibly loud.
Wow.
My Bloody Valentine, when they played at the Academy in Manchester, I was actually there for the sound check. And one of the sound men told me that they were actually louder than a jumbo jet taking off. But then in 2009, I went to All Tomorrow's Parties at Minehead, and there's a band from Brooklyn called A Place to Bury Strangers, and they were so loud that this is to bear in mind they played quite early on Sunday afternoon, and they were so loud the floor was shaking, and there was a girl being physically sick at the side of me, and I spoke to one of them after. And I said, there was a girl being sick, and he said, I know, man, we did like 149 decibels. And I'm just...
Oh, my days.
So, probably not the best thing to have your Sunday dinner to.
The artist band I've ever seen was Wolf Mother.
Yes, yeah, they're quite loud, actually.
And I remember coming home, and I must have had tinnitus for about 3 days. They were loud then. Absolutely. And then the only other time I know something went too loud was Kasabian, and something happened with the PA, and it went like a jumbo jet, and everyone literally just nearly vomited. It was just...
You sure they weren't vomiting to the music? Sorry, I'll leave that one.
Well, they won't with that band now. They've kind of folded, haven't they?
Yes, yeah.
Over the last few weeks, but yeah. So, have you ever reviewed a band that is not an original band, a covers band?
I have. Yeah, a few times. A few times. I've put covers bands on, supporting original bands. You know, I think there's some amazing covers bands. I think, you know, I mean, I don't quite get really why people, or some people, have got this down on covers bands or tribute bands. I think if you're making a living in a covers band or a tribute band, you've got to be an incredibly talented and very, very technical musician. You know, musically, you're trying to replicate and normally are something that someone else has done. And a lot of the time, you tend to find that people in those bands are better musicians than the people that they're actually taking off. So I've got the utmost respect for covers bands and tribute bands.
Don't review Up All Night, the band me and Sam Caroline is on.
I'd be up on the bar singing it. Don't worry about that.
No, Sweet Caroline, that my head falls off, and there's a little bass little moment, and every time we played it, Sam, something's happened at that point.
Always. Dom's probably the one. If he was there listening, he'd be the one that'd do something to you, no doubt.
I'd just come on and play maracas or bongos or something.
Like Bez.
I'd do my Bez on stage and grab the mic off you. Done that a few times, but don't want to hear it.
What's the next 12 months got in store for you then?
That's interesting. Do you know what? I mean, it's going to be an uncertain time, isn't it? I mean, and I guess you don't want to be too pessimistic or put too much of a downer on it, but I don't honestly know. I genuinely couldn't tell you, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns, if you like, for a lot of people that have been affected. I mean, people that work in promotions and work at venues and some of the artists themselves that have been laid off or been furloughed or have basically thought to themselves, you know what, we've got no idea when this is going to end. We've got mortgages, we've got bills to pay, we've got families to feed, and they've changed career. And I've seen a couple of bands certainly over my way in the East Midlands that have just called it a day purely because they can't afford to continue indefinitely.
Really sad. This afternoon, didn't I, when we were chatting, I said the amount of gear I've seen for sale in the last few weeks is sad, really, because people are just selling all the gear to afford to live.
Well, that's it, and no one's got any idea, when this is, when things are going to change, whether there'll be a vaccine, whether we've got to live with this going forwards. No one knows, do they? And then you've got all the restrictions around venues and social distancing and what's going to be sort of like a safe kind of haven to return to, and of course, how do you police it? And I think that's why, I don't see personally many big festivals coming back next year without a vaccine. Because it's going to be police.
One thing that always strikes me is how bands start, and I don't know if he's still with us. Is Dom still with us, Sam?
Potentially might have disappeared, but I will come onto your screens right now while we try and get Dom back. I think he's in and out of connection, but it's another great opportunity to go and follow us on social media, so on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. So I'll just remind the folks at home that on Facebook we are at C Live. Probably self-explanatory because you're watching the live stream now. But what would be brilliant for you, people that are watching right now, is to like and share it with your friends and family. Make them aware about the C Live podcast. Make sure they know about the C Live website and all of our fantastic acts that we have to offer, obviously when lockdown 2.0 is over. Also on Twitter we are at C Live Enter1, and Chris, you've been manning that Twitter page, and we've been liking and sharing all of our previous guests and also some exciting things that are coming up in the future as well. And of course on Instagram as well, we are at C Live UK, putting up highlight reels on our Instagram page along with some other exciting things that we can't mention. But we've got Dom back. Here's Dom again.
Dom, I've just got to say, because there's probably people who thinking of starting bands and stuff. What do you think's an important thing for a young, new, fresh band to do to be successful in the music industry? What in this modern way? Because there's more things accessible for bands and kids these days. What's the most important thing, do you think?
I think there's two things. I think one is practice, and I think the other one is don't be swayed by scenes or by other people. You do it for the reasons what made you pick up that guitar, what made you start singing, what made you play that drum kit, what made you press those keyboards. Do it for the right reasons, and I guess build your own path. Don't worry about what the next band in the next rehearsal room's doing or what the band down the road are doing. Do your own thing.
That's top advice. Sam, we'll do our own thing with Up All Night.
Yeah, because
send me the demo.
Literally,
you never know. I might even be able to give you a show in Nottingham.
We've been talking. Obviously, there are lots of weddings that are being cancelled. None other than my podcast guest Chris's, unfortunately. But we've been talking about it for a very long time, about the people that are getting married now are around, we're born around the late 80s, 90s, now coming into the early noughties. Is that what they call it? Noughties? Am I calling it the noughties? which is weird. But we've been talking about it for a long time, haven't we, Chris, about potentially revamping the set and maybe doing something a little bit different involving 90s and noughties. So yeah, that's something that you can look out. Again, I'll plug the Up All Night page as well. Make sure you go and follow the Up All Night page as well, because again, we'll be looking at doing some when we can safely and securely with the five of us. Obviously, we're all in different households. It's very difficult to rehearse, so it's unbelievable situation that we're in, that we can sort of have a conversation like this over Skype or Zoom, but we can't really rehearse because of, we can all do it in our bedrooms and rehearsal rooms, but we can't. It's not the same. It's not the same unless you're together in that same room. Chris, yeah.
Do you know what? We haven't spoke to each other for a while.
It's been 3-4 years. It must be.
Yeah. But we always stay in contact. We always follow each other's what we're up to, and it's great to finally meet up again. And I hope for the next time we're all at a festival.
I hope so, mate, as well. And like, thanks again for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure. Sharing my thoughts.
Anything where people can find your reviews or bands?
Yeah, sure. You can basically find us at Under the Radar. So it's basically www.undertheradarmag.com. If anyone wants to send me any demos or any music or anything, or just chat about music, I'm at dom@undertheradarmag.com. And obviously I'm across every other social media like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the rest of them, and YouTube as well. So
Sam, I'm going to show reel to Dom and let him review.
Yeah, I think you should do that.
Do it.
You should do that. I mean, I'll tell you what. I can even pick a set list for you if you want, and make sure that when I pick it, that you do me an actual set list to add to my folders.
That'll do. Hey, we're on, Sam.
There's one thing you forgot to mention, Chris. One thing you forgot to mention about the rabbits.
Oh, stop!
That was a thing. Yeah. So well, the rabbits thing. That was an X. So when I first moved into my house in Nottingham, which was, that'd be 2006, and I was with a different partner then, who decided to be a good idea to have a rabbit rescue place. So the Dom Likes Rabbits Twitter handle kind of like comes from that. Probably should have changed it years ago, and I've just never changed it.
I'm fine. You know what I'm going to start doing? My challenge next year was get chickens.
Okay.
Chickens are interesting. We've got. I'll tell you what we have got, because we've got a 3-year-old. Me and my wife have got a 3-year-old, and he's obsessed with snails. So we've actually got a big tub in the kitchen that's full of snails. And then last night my wife said, "There's babies. There's baby snails. One of them must have been pregnant." And there are literally these minute snails that have got through the ventilation holes and are all over the draining board in the kitchen.
Wow.
Literally dozens of snails. So I think we've probably got enough now. We could probably have our own Premier League of snails, so we could have sort of. That'll be the only time Forest will get to play at Liverpool, actually. But
just don't have a French cuisine night and eat them. That's
no. Although I've got plenty of chili sauce to help the taste away.
You need to change.
No.
You need to change your Twitter handle to Dom Mate Snails. There you go. And on that bombshell, on that snail shell, that has been the Sea Live podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. To those of you that are listening live, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking. Make sure you do follow us. Again, I'm going to plug the social medias again. Please do follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. That's at Sea Live on Facebook, at Sea Live Enter 1 on Twitter, and at Sea Live UK on Instagram. Chris, thank you again for another fantastic podcast.
My pleasure, Sam.
And the guest, as always, Dom, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Dom.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you for inviting.
Guys, that's been the Sea Live podcast. We'll see you next week with another fantastic guest. As always, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.